Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, August 31st. This is Gina McGuire. Today we'll continue to see lightning across the Great Basin. However, the potential will shift further east as dry air moves into the western half of the area. These thunderstorms will be trending wetter over far eastern areas where plenty of cloud cover and high base showers are already occurring this morning across Utah, along with a few isolated lightning strikes in the far south. However, in the area of clearing, just to the west of this cloud cover, is likely where we'll see more thunderstorms initiate early today, especially over southern and eastern Nevada. These thunderstorms into western Utah will be a mix of wet and dry today. Winds will be increasing over the Snake River Valley, generally northwest winds between 15 and 25 miles per hour, with some gusts possibly around 30 miles per hour, with decreasing relative humidity. As we move through the weekend into early next week, temperatures will really start to heat up with record heat, especially over the northern half of the Great Basin and high Haines. We will also see thunderstorms return to the area at some point by early next week. Over the last 24 hours, we've seen plenty of lightning activity across the Great Basin. These thunderstorms were on the drier side predominantly, however, over the southern areas there were a few pockets that picked up some wetting rains. We also had very gusty outflow winds with some of these thunderstorms. Over the last 24 hours, we had moderate initial attack across the Great Basin with over 40 new fires reported, and also a few large fires reported in the open red circles. Over the last 1 to 4 weeks, we've seen generally dry conditions over the last week over the western half of Nevada and into pockets of the eastern areas, and over the last 30 days, largely what we've seen has been below normal precipitation, with only some areas receiving near to just above normal precipitation, but the wetting rains were very spotty with thunderstorm activity. How this is represented in our current fuel conditions: ERCs are highest over the northern half of the Great Basin, dipping down into northern and central Utah, where ERCs are above the 80th to 90th percentile. These graphs on the right, the top graph, shows ERCs over the west central Idaho mountains are well above normal and approaching records, and the far map in the bottom right shows 100-hour fuel moisture for northern Utah is also at record lows for the time of year. 10-hour fuel moisture is still very low in the drier areas of Idaho and northern Nevada and also across Utah, but did increase somewhat with some moisture yesterday over eastern Nevada. However, 100-hour fuel moistures are still very low across the area. The satellite loop from this morning shows extensive cloud cover across much of eastern Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, and this will likely suppress thunderstorm activity early today and mainly be some higher base showers and higher humidity. However, it's this area just to the west of the cloud cover where we have clear air over parts of eastern and southern Nevada, and this is likely where we'll start to see thunderstorms by early afternoon, and they will be a mix of wet and dry on this western side. Much clearer air over the rest of western Nevada into western Idaho with decreasing relative humidity. Another feature of note on the satellite is Tropical Storm Lydia near the Baja Peninsula, and this will continue to track northwest and could push significant moisture up towards the area by early to the middle portion of next week. We will continue to monitor this, as this will at least bring us a return of thunderstorms, but the big question is how much moisture will move north, and will these thunderstorms be on the drier side or be closer to the wetter side? Looking at the weather pattern for today, again you can see where that deeper moisture has now moved later today over the eastern half of the Great Basin. However, still some pockets of mid-level moisture will be enough for some isolated thunderstorms over eastern Nevada. Much drier air has moved into central Idaho and western Nevada. We did issue high risk for wind for the increasing winds over mainly southern Idaho, where we'll see gusts around 25 miles per hour and possibly even higher. Also still very dry air in place over the far western areas of Nevada. If we look at the showers and thunderstorms for today, they'll be most concentrated across the eastern half of the basin, and again will be trending wetter, but it's this area just on the west side where isolated thunderstorms will be a mix of wet and dry. The wind picture shows generally these gusty outflow winds with these thunderstorms over the eastern half of the Great Basin, but you can see the increase in northwest winds over southern Idaho. As we move into Friday, drier air really starts to push eastward across much of the Great Basin. Lingering moisture may allow for some thunderstorms to continue over the Arizona Strip, far southern Nevada, and southern Utah. However, much drier air will push in, and you can see the change in our dryness levels from yellow to brown across the northern half of the area. Also, temperatures will start increasing as high pressure begins to strengthen over the west. Looking at Friday, relative humidity drops to around 10% over western areas and still remains slightly elevated as that moisture is in place in the east. Also, we'll continue with those gusty outflow winds and may even see a slight increase in winds over western Utah on Friday. As we move into Saturday, moisture still may remain in place over far southern areas for some isolated thunderstorms, and you can start to see some of this deeper moisture from Tropical Storm Lydia start to push northward. However, much drier air will remain in place over the northern half of the Great Basin, and it's this area where temperatures will be near record setting over the weekend, also with very dry conditions and high hains. So we have issued that high risk for the heat and dryness in those areas. You can see how the relative humidity continues to drop across the area, with winds generally on the light side, but still some gusty outflow winds near thunderstorms over the southern half of the basin. The overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 3 days is going to vary and mainly be tied to thunderstorm activity and predominantly be located across the eastern half of the basin into southern Nevada. As we move later into the holiday weekend, you can see how that heat expands further eastward across the northern half of the basin with near record temperatures, hot and dry conditions continuing, and high hains, which will definitely affect our ongoing incidents and also increases the likelihood of holdovers as we move through the weekend. We also have to be very mindful of human activity as dry and warm conditions continue. You can see the image on the left for Sunday. Moisture starts to increase a little bit, likely not enough for thunderstorms yet, but we will continue to monitor this, especially as it moves north across Nevada. The deeper moisture, however, associated with Tropical Storm Lydia will start to push north potentially by Monday. Right now we are continuing with the hotter and drier conditions over the northern half of the basin on Monday, as models are still struggling with this pattern change. However, we will have to watch this because we could be transitioning to a thunderstorm pattern on Monday, and we could see some fairly wet conditions over the far west, depending on how far this moisture tracks north. As we move into Tuesday, that moisture continues to press north, so we could see possibly again some moistening of the fuels across Nevada with continued lightning activity, but we're continuing to monitor this situation. Same story for Wednesday. The moisture moves a little bit further north, but again, we're continuing to monitor exactly when thunderstorms return to the Great Basin, and we could see a little bit more yellow on our significant fire potential depending on how deep that moisture is. The overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 7 days encompasses what we already saw on the 3-day map, but also if we do start to see that moisture move north, we could see more significant chances for lightning and wetting rains in the Sierra, especially as we go towards early next week. Looking at the long-term forecast taking us into the second week of September, very warm conditions continue across the west. However, we could see that above normal precipitation depending on how much that tropical moisture moves north. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.